Rise, Tarnished. Cast your mind back to when you first whipped open that door to Limgrave and those golden rays of the Erd Tree shone upon your maidenless face. Or when you first stepped into Lionia of the Lakes and took in a deep breath of that fresh air, only for your nostrils to be hit with the sharp smell of boiled prawns. This is the journey we're going to relive today in this video, ranking the Elden Ring boss fights that drop remembrances in order of difficulty from easiest to hardest. This will be based on my personal experience on my first ever playthrough, which was when the game launched in February 2022. As Rykard would say, together, let's relive those first time experiences of those boss fights. I'll also give an overall rank for each boss fight design using a wood up to diamond ranking system, wood being the lowest and diamond being the highest. This will be based purely on the boss fight design itself and ranked separately from the difficulty. The boss ranked at number 1 might just give you a surprise. Let's get into it. First up, we have the Regal Ancestor Spirit. This fight wasn't too tricky because by the time that I discovered where the boss actually was, my character was already quite high level. The Ancestor Spirit was hanging on for dear life after I added some fire to my sword and started slicing away. I tore through its health faster than when you turn and run after seeing a Revenant. I mainly use dual swords scaled up with dexterity, and my character has a high dexterity so it dishes out massive damage. The Ancestor Spirit does have a move where he absorbs the life force around him and restores his health, which can sometimes be a little bit annoying, but overall nice and easy. It'll be over before you can say oh dear. Coming in at number 14, we have Renala. As a melee user, once again, this fight didn't really last too long as my double swords sliced through her health bar. Phase 1 maybe took me a little while to figure out what was going on with those scholars singing their creepy little songs, and in Phase 2 I got stomped into the ground once or twice by the summoned spirit dragon and troll, but as she's wearing just a cloth robe which makes her squishier than a land octopus ovary, my double swords deleted her pretty quick. Next up we have Morgott, the Omen King. Once again, pretty squishy. I hear you saying to yourself, Azza, I'm seeing a squishy theme here. And yes you are. Another boss that is wearing a piece of cloth as armor, and probably nothing else underneath, knowing how despicable Morgott is. Once again, with dual swords buffed with fire, it turns out it was us who put his foolish ambitions to rest. Coming in at number 12, we have Godric the Grafted. We've all been there. You enter that boss arena, stare him straight into the eye as he utters his infamous line, "Need a hand, Tarnished?" Godric tripped me up a few times because I forgot that jumping was an actual in-game mechanic. So as he was slamming his weapon into the ground, creating those shockwaves, I was trying to roll through them or run away, which usually led to me getting slapped in the face by the next attack in his combo. And as we bear witness and change into Phase 2, he does find a way to get ahead in life. But after my brain caught up and realized that I could actually jump over a lot of his attacks, it didn't take long to put an end to Godric's grafting. Next up we have Lich Dragon Fortisax, and I know what you're thinking, why oh why is Fortisax so early in this list? Now I've got some explaining to do. Maybe Fortisax could be a difficult fight if I had discovered him a lot earlier on in my playthrough, but this was one of the last bosses that I fought in the game. Fortisax is just so far out of the way, tucked away down a rabbit hole, hidden in a dark cave, and locked behind a lengthy questline, that by the time I discovered the battle, my character was ridiculously strong and my weapons were tearing through his health faster than Hugh the blacksmith assumes that we've died.
I took you for dead.
The fight is really cool and very well put together, and I feel bad for ranking this fight at number 11, but in terms of ranking the actual difficulty, I blasted through this one on my first try. If you enjoy this boss fight, then you're sure to enjoy the one ranked at number 3. Is it a dragonfly? Is it a scorpion? No, it's Astal, natural born of the void. A very cool boss design, an otherworldly alien-like creature that shoots a laser beam out of its face. As soon as I walked through that fog door, I was, of course, like many others, blasted into oblivion by its giant laser beam. Astal did get me a couple of times with his Dragon Ball Z instant transmission and pincer grab attack, which does an insane amount of damage, but again, I didn't discover this boss fight until really late in my playthrough, and he was one of the last bosses that I fought in the game. Because of this, I blasted through this boss fight on my first try. However, I would imagine this boss fight would have been a lot harder if I had discovered him earlier. Coming in at number 9, we have Rykard. Because I've played From Software games before, as soon as I picked up the Serpent Hunter weapon, I knew this was the key to victory. I took it straight to Hugh the blacksmith and leveled it up so it was dishing out some beastie damage. Phase 1 wasn't too much trouble, but those damn exploding skulls in Phase 2 absolutely wrecked me every time. It took me a few tries to figure out a run for your life in one direction type strategy before I got the hang of those exploding skulls. There are some gimmick type fights in Dark Souls 3 and Demon Souls, so this one was a little bit of a throwback to those, and together, me and the Serpent Hunter took Rykard out in about 10 tries. Next up, we have WrestleMania 2022, starring Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. He likes to stomp, smash, and powerbomb you into the floor. I remember watching my character being hurled up into the air as my jaw hit the floor, thinking, I am so screwed. That move was really cool to see, as I'd never seen anything quite like it before in a From Software game. As usual, I used my double swords, and I'd started to use a shield at this point as well. So sometimes I whipped out the sword and shield combo if it was needed. And because the timings of his attacks were all over the place, the shield helped me block most of the damage, and I'd also follow up a block with a guard counter. In Phase 2, where he goes full WrestleMania mode, I just stayed behind him a lot with my dual swords and then sliced and diced him down to size. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. It's the Fire Giant at number 7. He's big, he's bad, and he's mad. When I first fought this guy, his health bar just did not seem to go down. I was hacking and slashing, but nothing seemed to work. On top of that, I kept getting splattered into the ground by what looks like a giant plate that he's stolen out of my grandma's kitchen cupboard. As soon as the chain broke around his ankle, the penny dropped, and I kept bashing away at his damaged foot. In Phase 2, I went up in flames a few times before equipping a flame-resistant talisman. After that, it was just a case of tickling his toes a few times before he bit the dust. Some people say it's not the size of your sword that matters, it's how you use it. Well, with Radahn, that statement is wrong. Very wrong. I put my dual swords up against Radahn's dual swords, and his are much bigger, faster, scarier, and have gravity magic. Those swords of his were smashing through my health faster than when Patches runs away after you summon him into the fight.
Bye, have a great time!
I chose to fight him solo with no spirit ashes and no summons, which probably didn't help matters. I was also fighting up close and personal instead of fighting on horseback, which also probably didn't help either. It took me a few good tries, but through sheer determination and stubbornness, I eventually toppled him. At number 5, we have Malakath. In Phase 1, he kinda looks like he threw together a last-minute Obi-Wan Kenobi cosplay. Phase 1 wasn't too bad for me, it's Phase 2 where things got wild. He whipped off that Jedi robe and brought out the most edgelord looking sword I've ever seen in my life. At this point, to say I was nervous would be an understatement. I did notice that my swords were doing pretty good damage when I actually landed a hit on him, but it felt like this was about once every half an hour. Add in his damage over time effect after you take a hit, that drains your health faster than you can say maidenless, and the fact that you can do a triple backflip, run down to the shops, pick up a pint of milk, and come back again by the time that I've swung a sword, it's safe to say that this was an absolute nightmare. After getting my butt kicked for a fair while, I thankfully managed to pull off a clutch victory. Boss ranked at number 4 is Moog. The general vibe of this area was enough to let me know that this boss was going to be trouble. When I got into the action with this boss fight, I genuinely hit a wall and had absolutely no idea how I was going to win this battle. Blood and flame, so much blood and flame. I had no idea where to place my character, as everywhere I tried to stand was on fire. Add in the nihil, 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 where my HP gets wrecked and his gets restored, and I was utterly hopeless. I had to walk away from this fight, go get the crystal tear, go get Moog's shackle, carry out a full revamp and reprep before I was able to go back and Moog him down to size. If you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you pop this video a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more videos from me. Dragon Lord Placidusax has it all. Fire, lightning, teleportation, a boatload of hit points, and everything else in between. If I didn't get wrecked by the two-headed fire breath attack, then I sure as hell did from the massive explosion that emanates from the giant red lightning bolt that he jams into the floor. By this point in my playthrough, I was using rotten breath and poison arrows quite a lot, so I tried to inflict scarlet rot and poison onto him, which technically did apply to him, but it was doing about as much damage to him as if I'd tickled him with a feather duster. At one point I thought the fight was going really well and that I had it in the bag. That was until he started shooting massive laser beams out of his not one but two mouths. This of course absolutely deleted me, and then I had to do the run back again from the site of grace all the way back down to the arena, which is just painful. It took a bit of doing, but eventually I cut him down to size. It is worth mentioning that I do have boss guides for the vast majority of these bosses. Feel free to check them out on this channel. Maybe if Radagon and the Elden Beast were completely separate boss fights, they may have been ranked differently in this list. However, fighting both of them back to back is harsh. Combine Radagon aggressively smashing away with his hammer with the cross-country marathon that is the Elden Beast fight, and you've got yourself a tricky situation. For me, it ended up being a test of how many flasks of Crimson Tears I could bring into the Elden Beast phase of the fight. Eventually, when I could bring enough along with me, it was enough to outlast the Elden Beast and claim victory. And now it's time for boss rank number 1. Soldier of God Rick. This guy is just absolutely insane. Even to this day, I don't know how to beat him. Oh wait, actually, he doesn't drop a remembrance. So that's all good, we can leave this guy off the list. And here she is, Melania, Blade of Mikola, Goddess of Rot. I approached Melania with my standard tactic of dual keen swords with my character's high dexterity. I was melting through her health and thought to myself, this fight will be over in just a few minutes, no sweat. Oh boy, was I wrong. She jumped up into the air and readied her blade. I blinked twice and my character stopped responding to my inputs. I looked over at my health bar and it was gone. What? I was confused, upset, and concerned. I looked around thinking, what in the 7 hells has just happened? I thought to myself, surely there's got to be some way to avoid this sword flurry. Nope. I tried and tried again, but no matter what I did, I just got deleted every single time. After I noticed that she also heals every time that she deals damage to you, I knew it was time to admit defeat. I had to turn off the game, contemplate my entire existence in a dark room for the evening, and then come back to it the next day. After many hours of pain and suffering, I eventually changed my swords from Keen, which is the dexterity scaling type, over to one of them being Blood and one of them being Frost. Add in Hoarfrost Stomp and a good tanky shield, and I was finally able to claim a victory. How would you rank these 15 Elden Ring bosses? Would you rank them differently? Which boss gave you the most trouble? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to continue your From Software adventure, then check out one of these videos right here.
Oh, rise now, ye tarnished, ye dead who yet live. The call of long-lost grace speaks to us all. Oh.